What was the state of mind of the woman at the center of the kidnapping hoax story, and how is she doing now? We'll find out right now on It's Your Call. As the old saying goes, there are always two sides to a story. And this hour on It's Your Call, we're going to give you a different perspective on the so-called Abduction Hoax Mom. You're going to hear her side of the story from her lawyer in just a moment. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lynn Doyle, and Louis Busico is the attorney representing Bonnie Sweeten, the so-called Abduction Hoax Mom. You'll recall that she's charged with setting off a chain reaction of events stemming from a 911 call she made alleging that she and her 9-year-old daughter had been kidnapped by two black men and were being held in the trunk of their car. Amber alerts were issued throughout the region, and law enforcement officials from several agencies joined in the search. Social networking sites jumped into the hunt as well. Well, hours later, mother and daughter were found alive and well, and in Disney World. And that's when the world found out that the abduction story was a hoax. All the public sympathy and concern then turned to anger and outrage, with almost everyone wanting to know why. Why would someone do such a thing? Well, hopefully Mr. Busico will be able to shed some light on that for us. Let me introduce you to him now. Lou, thank you very much for being with us.
My pleasure, Lynn. Thank you.
I really appreciate you agreeing to talk about this. I know that there are some parameters that you've set for the interview. We'll try to respect those, but certainly, first and foremost, people want to know how this family is doing, specifically the 9-year-old little girl, Julia.
By all accounts, she's doing incredibly well. The entire family, they're a very close-knit unit. They spend holidays together. They spend just routine parts of the day together. They're in constant communication via telephone, computers, and everything else. So they're doing well. The child is doing incredibly well. Her school year is coming to an end. She has remained incredibly close to her parents and her grandparents, as well as a social network of friends that she has. She's even, if there's a somewhat silver lining to this particular story, she's even developed a closeness with Phillies ace reliever Brad Lidge, who's been unbelievably supportive of the young girl. So she's holding up okay.
Was there a need for her to be counseled in some way, or is she in any kind of treatment as a result of the aftermath of this situation?
To my knowledge, Lynn, she's doing very, very well. Whether there was a need, I leave that to the experts. The story and the incident, the events of a few weeks ago, they were somewhat different for her because she was with the person who is her mom. She knows her to be her mom, and she was in the vacation capital of the world. So while it was unusual, the manner in which she was returned, it was not as traumatic as at first blush it may appear. And in large part, that was due to the wonderful job that law enforcement, local and at the national level, the wonderful job they did in ensuring that that child was okay.
She was reunited with her father, who, as your client's ex-husband, remains very supportive of her. That might come as a surprise to a lot of people, that not only her ex, but her current husband stand by her throughout this entire ordeal. What does that say to you?
Well, you ask anybody who practices family law, that's highly unusual. It's really a 1,000,000-to-1 shot that you're seeing here. And what that says, it screams the obvious. It screams that Bonnie's a person that once you know her and you connect with her, she's very, very loyal, and she's very true to herself and to those who are important to her. So the fact that her first husband remains loving and supportive and has not wavered one iota in her support, in his support of her, that tells you the kind of person she is, and it tells you the kind of mom she is. I mean, don't define this woman by a few days when her world imploded. Look at the entire picture, and then you see what she is.
Well, let's talk about the entire picture, and let's talk about the days leading up to the time that you say her world imploded, and that's a good term for it. What was her state of mind, or how would you describe the days that she spent leading up to this incident?
I'm not at liberty to discuss everything that I know about Bonnie. And I mean, I know you can respect that, as can the viewers. However, she was under an inordinate amount of pressure. The veneer of the wonderful suburban life with the nice home and the 2 cars, you know, that was all there. But behind the scenes, as a new mom, the mom of a 3rd child, the mom who's trying to keep the family together, keep the house in line, pay the bills, you know, you can't always make sense of a nonsensical act. She felt what was probably a disproportionate amount of pressure to the circumstances, and nonetheless, you know, she just felt that she had to act in a certain way, which meant leave the situation, take her 1 child who had never been to Disney World, take her down there. There was some overwhelming drive in her that told her, I must take this child to Disney World. Do
you believe that she may have had a temporary breakdown or suffered some sort of stress-induced psychotic incident?
Well, again, I'm not a mental health care expert, but I am a person who interacts with humans just like the rest of us do. And I think a common sense layperson answer is, sure, she just broke under the pressure. She broke under the pressure and acted abnormally in a way that she spent the previous years in her life never acting. So there clearly was some type of trigger that caused her to do things that don't make sense to people who aren't feeling that level of stress and that level of pressure.
Now, Lou, critics will say that all of us are under pressure, that there are plenty of suburban moms out there dealing with financial troubles, dealing with 3 children, dealing with postpartum depression, who don't turn to this kind of action to deal with it. What would you say to those critics?
Well, I would say to those critics, initially, you're right. Of course, there are many urban or suburban mothers and fathers who are killing themselves to pay the mortgage, pay the rent, keep the kids in school, and they don't act this way. But the last time I checked, we're all different. We all have a different genetic makeup. We all respond to situations in a different fashion. So before everybody gets on their high horse and becomes self-righteous and judgmental, take a step back and perhaps have an ounce of empathy for how this particular young lady reacted. And fortunately, at the end of the day, no one was harmed here.
Empathy, I'm sure our viewers could have for her if it did not seem like this was a premeditated act. The district attorney of Bucks County, in which this crime essentially occurred, the district attorney has been quoted as saying that she used a fake ID, which she used to travel, and that there were some other indications that she had given forethought to her actions. It wasn't something that she just reacted to. So how would you respond to that argument that there was a premeditation aspect to it?
Well, there would have to be a premeditation. I mean, you can't, beam yourself like a Star Trek character to Disney World. You have to obtain a ticket on an airline. You have to get to the airport. So, of course, there was some thought put into the process. That's why she wasn't found racing across country in someone else's vehicle. However, the fact that she may have thought things through 48 or 72 hours in advance in no way means that she wasn't acting out that way because of a delusion perhaps she was operating under and the pressure that she believed was very, very real at that time in her life.
In your mind, do you feel that she was trying to escape whatever pressures she was living with?
In my mind, she just felt overwhelmed, and whether the pressures were self-induced, whether they're a result of postpartum, I don't know. That's why we have mental health care experts. But there's no doubt in my mind that this young woman felt the need to escape. And she escaped to a place where everyone goes when they want their fantasies to come true. And she did it for a reason that the 1 child in the family had not been to Disney World yet, and she wanted desperately to take her there.
Okay, so people might give you that. They might say that the mom just needed to walk away from problems. We've all been there. We've all felt like we'd like to do that. And whether we act on it or not is another thing. I think where this story really hits an emotional peak with people is the fact that she is alleged to have faked her own kidnapping, the 911 call that triggered so many of the resulting events. Can you explain for us her state of mind with that, or how you would defend her making that call?
Well, you can't defend the fact that it appears factually the call was made. So perhaps there may not be a legal defense per se. It's not as if we can say that's not her voice, it's not her cell phone, it's not her husband. I mean, that would be somewhat comical and farcical. What I can say is when you're so stressed out and, excuse the expression, whacked out, that you're just looking for a day or a couple of days of peace and solitude, you're not going to travel under your own name wherever